Entertainment Soldier here, and I am back to talk about Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 8, and my thoughts on this episode. I did enjoy the episode. I think it is a good episode, but there are problems. There's especially a problem with a character's death in this episode, which does break law, in my opinion. I'll try to go into more detail about that in the spoiler section, but their death doesn't really make sense. I know it was a great ending for the character, but it does break Star Trek lore, and I'm a Deep Space Nine fan, so that person's death doesn't really make sense to me. But overall, it was a good episode. I loved the scene with Data and Lore. I loved that entire arc of this episode. I thought it was great. I did see it coming, but I mean, the acting was great in that scene between Laura and Data, and seeing Data do what he did, I knew what he was doing, and I loved every minute of it, and I was just so happy how that all ended. And yeah, this is what Star Trek's good at. It's good at just doing small stories and making them seem bigger, and I was just very happy with that scene overall. Problems that I do have with this episode, mainly to do with the violence and it being so bloody graphic. Again, I know, blood and guts. I'm not a child, I can see it, but in this episode it did seem to be over the top. I mean, we do see a scene in this episode with a woman with a knife in her chest, which I just thought was kind of over the top. And yeah, the beginning of this episode was definitely the weakest part of the episode for me. But overall, a good episode, and I did enjoy the ending, but it did piss me off at the same time, because this ending just felt like the same ending from last episode. And if you've watched the episode, you know what I mean when I say the two endings seem the same. We're going to find out some information, and then we don't find out until next episode. So that did piss me off. I have to admit that did piss me off. But overall, good episode. But I have to admit, 7 and 8 are the weakest episodes of this season for me. So I'm going to give this episode out of 10. Ooh, what do I give it? I'm going to say 7. I know it's pretty low for me, but that's the best I can do for this episode. Yes, they're great. There's great, parts of the episode, but overall, yeah, I just can't go up to anything other than a 7. So it's a 7 out of 10 for me. It's a good episode. Just the little problems and the over-the-top violence I think these episodes could do with a little bit sorting out, personally. So let's go into spoilers now. If you don't want to hear spoilers, leave in 3, 2, 1. So, the episode starts off with Vadik on the bridge, pretty much trying to get Jack to come up so she could take him somewhere and do something with him, basically. So she tries to threaten the crew to try to get Jack to surrender. We then get this ridiculous scene where you see a bunch of Starfleet officers just running up to the bridge and getting trapped and annihilated by the changelings. Now, what I don't like about this scene is, one, why are you running up to a bridge that could be in enemy hands with no fucking weapons? The woman in front screaming to go to the bridge is unarmed, and she is just running up there, don't know the situation, doesn't have any plan, just runs up there and just leads a bunch of Starfleet officers into a trap that all get slaughtered by Vadik and the changelings. So I thought the scene was stupid. I think it's over the top violent, and it just wasn't necessary. All you'd needed in this scene was Vadik slaughtering a couple of innocent officers officers, and that would have been enough. Having them go running down a hall, acting like morons, and then getting trapped and annihilated, it just seemed very ridiculous to me. Anyway, so Vadik then, starts playing the music that she loves, which is Solid is getting annihilated by her men, and Vadik then looks up and down at the crew that she's captured on the bridge, and she starts to kind of like acting all threatening. And then you get this great scene, which it was a great scene, where Shaw pretty much tells Seven, why the fuck didn't you stop this from happening? Why didn't you blow up the turbo lift to stop them taking control of the bridge? And Seven tries to go on this little, she tries to go on this little tirade of like, listen, I did to save your life and I'd make the same decision again. And Shaw does the right thing and he says, no, stop. You're not a fucking person. You're a fucking Starfleet officer. What you've done here is given control of our fucking bridge to the bloody enemy. And now she has all of our crew hostage. And now you're going to have to accept the fucking consequences of your bloody weakness. And I love this scene because usually with Star Trek, especially Kurtzman Trek, when a man calls out a woman, she usually turns out to be right. In this episode and in this one scene, you can see that Shaw makes fucking sense. That what Seven did was the wrong decision. Yes, she saved Shaw, and I'm very happy he's still alive because fucking hell, Shaw has definitely grown on me as a character. I fucking love this guy. He's like a fucking fan on a bridge, and he's just a great character overall. But that scene when he questions her and he's proven right, it's really refreshing because it tends to go the other way in Kurtzman Trek. I mean, if you'll remember Star Trek Discovery, when the bloke called out a woman and ended up dead the next scene over, I mean, that was pretty annoying. So at least with season 3 of Picard, we're not getting the stupid storylines, we're not getting the whole men are wrong and women are right things. Listen, both sexes can be right and wrong at the same time. Anyway, so Shaw calls out Seven. Seven tries to defend herself, but pretty much the crew are kind of fucked because Vadik has complete control of the Titans. She has control of the whole systems. And what I have to remind myself is, they didn't really explain last episode how Vadik took control of the ship. I mean, she took over the bridge, yes, but how does she have all this knowledge? And I was reminded by a subscriber called Kevin G. He asked the question, I kind of tried to answer it. But in this episode, we got the answer. Turns out Riker gave her his command code. And apparently in Starfleet, if you're a captain or a command rank, you have a code to every Federation ship which allows you to take over if you know this ship is being taken over by an enemy group. So that's how Vadik got control of the ship. And I just want to thank Kevin for asking me the question, because in this episode I was looking for that. Because I needed them to answer that question. How did she get control of that ship? And there you go. There's the answer. I think could have been a bit more of an answer to it, but I'm kind of happy with it. Anyway, so Picard and Jack tells Picard what he's going through and how he's hearing voices and how he's kind of got all these superpowers all of a sudden and he doesn't really know what's happening to him. Beverly tries to calm him down and, stop him from doing anything stupid, like surrendering to Vadik, because Jack wants to surrender because he doesn't want any more crewmen dying for him. But Picard has to tell him, listen, we don't know what's going to happen if you do surrender. Because what if you surrender and all Vadik ends up doing is beaming you back to the strike and torpedoing the fuck out of the Titan. So, yes, giving up to her right now might seem good, but unfortunately, we still don't know what this crazy bitch is going to do afterwards. We then get a scene where Geordi disconnects Law and Data from the main computer so Law doesn't fuck up more of the ship's systems. And Geordi doesn't really know what to do now because he's lost a lot of control of where he is, because Vadik has taken full control of the ship, so he can't use any computers. And Geordi just gets left alone for the rest of the episode. Not rest of the episode. Gets left alone for a bit. Kind of wish they can't. Well, never mind that. But yeah, Geordi's still with Data. They're not really sure what to do. They're pretty much waiting to find out what Picard's plan is, basically. We go to the strike, where Riker and Troy, have an emotional scene with each other. We now understand why Riker really left. I know he explained it episodes ago, but he does explain that he left because Troy was taking away his pain about the loss of his son, and that was the last connection he had with his son, which was the pain he felt after his death, and how he wanted to feel that pain. He didn't want to hide from it. He wanted to, embrace the pain and go through it. And Troy's kind of like, I tried to help you, but I'm supposed to do no harm as a shrink. I should have let you go through the pain. I shouldn't have tried to stop you. But you have to remember that as I am, a psychic, I don't just go through my own pain, but I feel everybody else's pain around me. And so Riker kind of understands that, yes, what he did was wrong, just leaving her, but he needed that time away so he can feel the pain. And now they're back together, and he's just happy to see her again. And then we also find out how Troy got captured, which was the Changelings pretty much sent a copy of Riker to go grab her. She kind of realised it wasn't him, but she couldn't really stop them anyway because they were Changelings with rifles. So they kidnapped her and brought her to the ship. And now they've got to try and figure out a way to, escape. But I can't really. But Riker tells tells Troy what he had to do, which was give her his command codes so she could take over the ship. Vadik, that's what he's talking about. And his plans basically give her the codes to the ship to make sure she doesn't kill Troy, and hope that Picard has a plan to stop Vadik, which was, I kind of think, is a kind of stupid plan. I mean, I get you have a lot of faith in Picard, but that's a lot of faith and a lot of hope that could have gone in a massively bad direction if Picard didn't get everything right. So, kind of think, I wish Riker had a better plan overall. Kind of think this is kind of a weak part of the episode, was Riker. Kind of think he could have done a bit of a better job. But we go back to the Titan, where Vadik then decides time to kill a member of the crew. She walks up and down the crew asking a couple of questions. She brings down one of the female crew officers and opens a channel shipwide so this crewman can tell Jack who she is and her rank, her name, so Jack knows who's dying for him. She then walks down a couple of people and then head to the the tactical officer, who's the Bajoran guy, pulls him down, asks him a different questions like who loves you and who would basically miss you when you're dead, and he mentions his son, and Vadik tells him to tell Jack to surrender to her on the bridge. And I love this scene because the guy doesn't just do as he's told. He says, I can't do that because I'm Starfleet, and that's not what we do. And I thought that was a great scene, having a Starfleet officer knowing that he could die, but accepting that because he's a Starfleet officer and that's what he has to do to protect other people, which I loved. So Vadik walks down, puts the phaser to the female officer on the floor. It looks like she's going to kill her, but then turns the phaser to the Vulcan and shoots the Vulcan instead. And I kind of thought this was a good scene. It's pretty villainous. I like the fact that it didn't just kill one of the officers that she was questioning. She just picked a random person who we've got to know a little bit, because she has been in a bunch of episodes. It was sad to see the Vulcan woman go, but I just kind of thought it was a kind of more impact that she got killed and not this other officer. Might be a bit wrong, but I certainly did feel sad that we lost that Vulcan. I thought it did make sense. It was heart-wrenching to see her die, but that's what they got to do. So Jack's pretty much determined now, and he wants to surrender to Vadik, but Picard has to stop him and say, listen, you can't do it. We need to have a plan to retake the ship. And so Jack then brings up his powers again, and then Sydney tells Picard, listen, this is not fake. He's not who's hallucinating. He has got powers, because his powers saved my life when I was attacked by a changeling. So Picard tells him, I have a plan. If you can control people, try to get control of someone on the bridge. And he does. He manages to control a member of the bridge crew to type in Picard's code, so Picard can take over the ship. But before the guy can, click accept on the computer so Picard can take over the ship, Vadik stops him, and that plan pretty much falls apart. And then Sydney tells Picard, unless we have someone on the bridge who can type in your code, we are pretty much fucked. And I could try to come up with some sort of way to get into the computer, but it would take months for me, or years for me, months for my father. They need an AI to break the code of the Titan so they can take full control of the ship. And the only AI they have is Data, but Data and Law are having a fight over the body, and Geordi's still not sure if Data can win that fight. So Riker, Jack, Sydney and Beverly head off. They get to Geordi, and Picard tells Geordi, we have to let them fight. We have to let Data take control of the body. He's our only hope for taking back the ship. Geordi has to remind him that if Data loses this fight, Data is gone forever, and there's no coming back from this if he loses. But Picard tells him again, there's no other choice. We just have to do this. So Geordi rehooks up Data Law body, and then we get the scene between Data and Law where Law pretty much tells Data, I'm winning, I'm going to take over this body, and all those trinkets you have, your memories, they don't matter anymore because you'll soon be dead. And Data, it does seem like Data just accepts that he's going to lose and just keeps handing Law all these momentums, like his Sherlock hat, his Sherlock pipe, all of his memories basically. And what you start to realise is that these parts of Data, they are going to mean something when we get to the big fight between Data and Law. But in the next scene, we find Riker and Troy still on the strike, and when a changeling goes to try to take Troy and he opens the cell, you then get a knife in his gut, and it turns out to be Worf, who is rescuing Troy and Riker from the strike. And then we get the fucking funniest scene of the series, I have to say, because you then get Worf going all fucking romantic or something with Troy, how he's been thinking about her, how he wanted to see her, and you just got Riker on the other side like, what the fuck are you playing at? And I couldn't stop laughing, because it's just like, Worf, what the fuck? Riker is right there, and you're doing this now? I thought it was a funny scene, man. and I loved it. Especially because, if you know the history of Next Generation, Worf did have a thing for Troy, and he kind of just left her alone because he knew Riker wanted her, and he was kind of like, okay, I'll leave it there. But just to have this funny scene where it looked like Worf was trying to move in on Troy, it was funny, and I did enjoy it. So Worf and Troy and Riker head down to, I think, the cargo hold of the Shrike, where we see the body of Picard. And Raffi's also there, because they were able to get that on her ship. That weird pirate ship that Spanish guy had. I forgot the fucking name, sorry. And they cloaked the ship, and they managed to get on the Shrike, and they found the body of Picard, and they realised that what the Changeling are doing with Picard are taking parts of his body that have the disease that Picard had in season 1 of Picard. I have completely forgot what it's called, but that's what they've been trying to take out of Picard, his disease. I kind of hope we get more information about this, because it does seem a bit crap. Well, it does seem a bit weird that that's the reason they're taking on Picard. That's the reason they grabbed Picard's body, was for a virus. I mean, couldn't you get that virus from anywhere else? But maybe season 1, this was the special disease. I don't fucking know. And I'm not going to rewatch fucking season 1 of Picard. Fuck that. So that's why I needed Picard's body. They download all the information they can from Shrike's computers. And they pretty much just have to wait until Picard takes back the ship controls, so that they can transport over to the Titan with all the information they've taken from the Shrike. So we get to the best scene of the episode, which is Data and Lore ending fight. So Data hands over more of his memories to Lore. Lore thinks he's won. We then get the final thing that Data gives him, which is Spot, his cat. And we get this really good scene where Data explains that his cat Spot taught him how to love, taught him how to feel, and how it's a very important part of his life, Spot. And he hands that to Lore, and it does then look like Data gets deleted and Lore has won the battle for the body, and it does look like Data was deleted. And then you see Picard and Geordi kind of react to the fact that Data might have just surrendered to Lore and let him take over his body. But it turns out this was all a trap for Lore. It turns out all those memories that he was taking from Data and just throwing away, those were parts of Data that were taking over Lore's part of the brain. So every part that Data gave to him was just parts of Data that Lore was accepting into himself. And so Data then takes full control of the body, and then we get this great scene where Lore and Data say their goodbyes as brothers, and I thought that was a really good scene between them both. And then Data gets full control, reactivates, and then takes back control of the ship from Vadic. I have completely forgotten that Jack also had to go up to the bridge to distract Vadic, so that they could let Data and Lore have this fight. So Jack goes up to the bridge, surrenders to Vadic, and tells Vadic to put the rest of the crew, to put what's left of the crew, or left of the crew on the bridge, in the room behind the bridge, so that they're out of the way for a good reason. Then she does that, but then Seven stays behind to accept the consequences of her actions. They close the door, and then we get the scene where you think Vadic is finally going to fucking tell us who Jack is, or what he is, but she just doesn't. She keeps saying that, I know all this stuff you're going through, the loneliness, the big red door. You want to know what you are, you want to know what's inside you, then you have to come with me. And Jack is like threatening her with like a grenade thing, at least that's what you think it is. And Jack is like, he's kind of panicking because he starts to see that she does know what he is. and maybe he can finally know what's wrong with him or what is inside him. And she does keep mentioning stuff like the voices and being alone, and it does keep feeling like Jack is a changeling. Even Jack in this episode says he could be a changeling. He says, I don't feel like a changeling, but we are getting those kind of connections, like what if Jack is a changeling? But I have a different idea. What if a changeling's inside Jack? Not him, but inside him and hiding in his body for some reason. I don't know if that's true, but it would make a bit of sense. But then we just get the whole red eye thing, controlling other people, which you've never seen changelings being able to do. But maybe this is just a different form of their powers. I don't know. It is kind of weird, Jack's powers. So I hope that we're finally, next episode, going to find out what the fuck Jack is. Because that's getting kind of annoying that we keep having to wait to find out about that. But anyway, so Data takes control of the ship. Vadik then realizes this was a trap. And then Data tells Jack to get ready. And this is where Jack then says, this is my cue. He then activates the grenade thing. Turns out to be a small little shield for him and Seven. And then Data opens the bridge's front. And then Vadik and the other changeling get sucked out of the bridge. We also get this scene where Raffi has this fight with 4 changelings, and it was a dumb scene. I'm sorry, it was dumb. Why are they not using phasers on her? Why are they all of a sudden just decided to use knives, use swords? I get they're trying to have a badass scene, and it was okay, but you know, it just didn't fit. Okay, they have phasers. You could have had Raffi having a big phaser fight with them, then using a sword at the same time. It felt over the top and unnecessary to me. Again, listen, I liked Raffi in this season. I thought the scene was okay, but it doesn't make sense when you realise that the fucking changelings have weapons and the changelings are pretty fucking tough to kill, but they could just be killed by a stab in the gut. Okay, that's kind of weird, and I kind of think you need to kind of, again, explain that. But they managed to kill what was left of the changelings on the Titan, and then when Data opens the bridge, Vadik and the changeling get sucked out. And this is where what I mentioned before, with the law-breaking stuff. Vadik gets, frozen in space and then shatters when she hits the strike. Now, my problem with this is we have seen in Star Trek changelings can survive in space. So, how did she die? Now, if they say that this is because of the evolution or what the Federation has done to Vadik and the other changelings, that they can't do that certain thing anymore. But having to die in space, changelings can survive in space. So, you need to explain that. Because we've seen in Star Trek they can survive. So how is she dead if she could probably do that? But I have to admit, the last thing she said was funny. Fucking solids. I did laugh. I thought that was kind of a badass way to go. You know, I'll accept that. Yeah, it was kind of funny what she said. She gets sucked out, she dies. Fine. I did enjoy the scene, but again, kind of got to answer the question of why she's dead then. So they've won. Vadik's dead. Riker, Troy, and Worf back on Titan. Seven lets out the crew from the back. Shaw tells Seven to, destroy the Shrike. Seven orders the destruction of the Shrike, and they destroy the Shrike and have finally beaten these changelings. And I kind of like the fact they destroyed the Shrike, but a part of me kind of thinks maybe they should have taken it over. I mean, the ship's there. There's not that many changelings left. Send a boarding party and kill them all. and then you've got two ships. I kind of wish they did that. But I do get at the end of the day, they need to destroy the ship. I get it. Anyway, so they've won the day. We then get this scene where we have the whole crew around the table, you know, reminding us of the old days of the Next Generation. We get a scene between Data and Geordi, where Data tells Geordi that he's more human now, he's older now, he feels everything that humans feel, he can feel emotions, he can make jokes, and they make sense. And so he's, you know, he feels like a new person. They then go up to the bridge and they go to the back room where Picard and the gang are, and they all sit round it. Data kind of says that yes, he's a new person, he's happy that he's alive to be with his friends. Picard has to bring up the fact that he's already killed him once, but Data then explains that part of him is dead and happy to be dead, but he's a different part of himself, and he's happy to be alive. And I'm just not going to talk anymore about that because, again, it's from season 1 of Picard. I just want to forget that fucking shit exists. But they're all happy to see each other again. Troy kind of mentions that she's been wanting to talk to Beverly for years, and that she's talked to her to herself, and she's happy that she's back in her life, basically. So they're all happy to be together. Picard then mentions that they now have to figure out what the changelings are going to do on Frontier Day. What's their plan to destroy the Federation? And they need to work on that now. Troy says that now she has to meet Jack because he is he's a part of the changelings' plan to destroy the Federation, and they need to figure out what's wrong with him. So the last scene is Troy and Jack having a session with each other, where Jack pretty much tells her about the door, and then Jack and Troy go to the door together, where Jack ends. Well, the episode ends with Jack's hand on the handle, getting ready to open it, and the episode ends. And this annoyed me because last episode I kind of thought that was what we were going to find out in this episode of what the fuck Jack is. So that did annoy me. And that's the end of the episode. I did like the episode. There are great scenes, but again, there are problems, and I kind of hope they do answer it next episode. And that's the end of my review. It's a 7 out of 10. It's a good episode. A little bit of improvement, but overall, okay. And that's it. If you like this video, give it a like. If you dislike this video, give it a dislike. And if you like my content, do think about subscribing. And do comment below, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Entertainment Soldier, bye.